Hello, my name is Giselle Baena, and today I will be discussing a historic and social issue related to those with disabilities, that is, the link between vaccines and autism. This was a prevalent issue for professionals in the medical field as society was beginning to refuse or become hesitant to vaccinate their children. Before getting into the research that demonstrates that there is no link between autism and vaccines, I would like to briefly discuss vaccines, how they work, and their importance. A pathogen is a bacteria, virus, parasite, or fungus that can cause disease within the body. Every pathogen is made up of unique subparts called antigens. When infection occurs within the body, our immune system produces antibodies which are responsible for recognizing one specific antigen. Although humans have thousands of different antibodies, when our body is exposed to an antigen for the first time, it takes time for the immune system to respond and produce these antigen-specific antibodies. This means until then, the individual who is infected is susceptible to becoming ill. However, once antibodies are produced, they work with the rest of the body's immune system cells to mitigate disease by destroying the pathogen. As you can see here on the screen, the measles, chickenpox, and flu pathogens have their own unique antigens. Therefore, different antibodies are needed for each. And when a new pathogen is introduced, our body needs to build a specific antibody that can grab onto its antigen to destroy it. It is important to note that antibodies rarely protect against multiple pathogens unless they are very similar to each other. With that said, this is where vaccines come into play. Vaccines are produced to contain weakened or inactive antigen parts of a particular pathogen. This triggers an immune response, and as discussed on the previous slide, antibodies are then produced. Although it may seem counterintuitive to purposely introduce antigens to the body, the weakened and inactive parts of the pathogen will not cause disease to the individual receiving the vaccine. Instead, it gives the body an advantage as it provides a head start to existing or newly discovered pathogens. As the immune system is introduced to antigens early on through the use of vaccines, the body already knows how to defeat it when it encounters a pathogen later on. There are two levels of thinking when it comes to vaccines: individual and population level thinking. The majority of the population who receives vaccines do so as a way to protect themselves and their loved ones. This is called individual level thinking. This is not a bad thing. Most people simply just do not understand or have not been taught the greater importance of vaccines, that is, herd immunity. Herd immunity is an indirect form of protection to a virus that can occur when a certain percentage of a population is vaccinated or naturally infected by the virus itself. This does not become effective until a population reaches the herd immunity threshold where the infectious pathogen can no longer spread. As this threshold is reached, those who are most susceptible to infection or did not get vaccinated are then indirectly protected. As a result, outbreaks are limited or prevented. This is population level thinking. The figure on the screen shows herd immunity in action. As more individuals become vaccinated, those shown in yellow, there is a lower probability of others becoming sick and contagious, which are shown in red. Now back to the controversy. Although there has been extensive research to prove that there is no link between autism and vaccines, people continue to believe that there is. I think this is the case because of the lack of education people receive in regards to medical information and because of the media and sources of information people use. It is no secret that we live in a world that is predominantly technology-based. We spend most of our time on our phone, and for the most part, we gain information through the social media platforms that we have. With this said, I think many people get false or misconstrued information from inadequate sources, and instead of taking the time to research and validate this information, they take it for what it is and believe it. It is important to not only educate ourselves but also others when it comes to vaccines in order to create herd immunity and protect the population from catastrophic outbreaks like the COVID-19 pandemic we recently went through. With that said, let's get into the research that disproves this controversial link and the changes that have been made in the medical field. Concern about a possible link between vaccines and autism started with a publication in 1998. The study reported 12 children with inflammatory bowel conditions and regressive developmental disorders, most of which were autism. In 8 of the 12 cases, the children's parents and pediatricians believed that the MMR vaccine might have contributed to the behavioral problems, as they followed shortly after vaccination. Therefore, the authors of this study proposed that the MMR vaccine was responsible for the neurodevelopmental disorder. This is when the controversy started and people began to think negatively of vaccines. However, later results of several independent studies conducted after the publication of this original report provide compelling evidence against this hypothesis. There were no signs of an increase of autism cases after the introduction of the MMR vaccine in 1998, and there was no onset identified within the predefined intervals after vaccination. In fact, the original study that made this vaccine autism claim was retracted from medical journals because of its improprieties. It was also thought that there was a link between thimerosal, a mercury-containing preservative that was used in pediatric vaccines like the MMR vaccine, and the onset of autism. However, since 2001, vaccines no longer contain thimerosal, therefore this can no longer be used as an argument. Nonetheless, the link between autism and vaccines is not supported. However, it is our job to ensure that we are listening and acquiring validated information and helping others understand the importance of vaccines in order to protect everyone around us by achieving herd immunity. Thank you all for listening.